Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Jane here. You're welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be showing us how to properly draft an armhole princess bustier pattern. If this is something you are interested in, watch the video to the end. So with me I have the following tools that I'll be working with. I have the pattern paper, I have tape, I have pencil, I have my pattern master, and I also have my armhole curve. Please ensure to like this video, watch to the end. If you're a new subscriber, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you as well. I appreciate all of you. Now we are going to start with the front. I'm going to set one of the paper aside. That will be for the back. So here for the front, I've marked out my vertical and horizontal measurement on my paper. The vertical measurement is going to serve as our center front line, while the horizontal line at the top will serve as our shoulder line. So what I'm going to do is to place my shoulder measurement at that point. My shoulder is 14 divided by 2, that will be 7. So it's 7 inches that I marked at the top. Now from that point, we are going to get the distance from the shoulder to the bust line, the distance from the shoulder to the underbust line, and the distance from the shoulder to the waistline. So these are the measurements you will be requiring. And you'll also be requiring your circumference, your bust circumference, your underbust circumference, and your waist circumference. So what I'm doing right here is to measure from my from my shoulder to my bust line, which is 9.5 inch. I marked that across the paper. I also marked out my shoulder to my underbust line, which is 13 inches. I marked that across the paper as well. And then I went ahead to mark out my shoulder to my waistline, which was 16.5 inch, which is 16.5 inch. I went ahead to also mark that across the paper as well. So now after you've gotten these 3 points, now what you will do is to just take your pattern master and connect the points together to form a straight line on your pattern. So the first line is the bust line, the second line is the underbust line, while the third line is the waistline. So these are the 3 lines you'll be needing for this pattern. And also we are going to be adding additional line, which is going to be the chest line. So after you've gotten your waistline, you're going to go over the top and create the chest line. So for the chest line, what you do is to take your tape and place it on your bust line. You come up by 1 inch. So this measurement is dependent on size, it's not a standard. And from my center point line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder line. Where I have half of my shoulder line, which is 7 inches, that is where the 1 inch that we marked from our bust line is going to start from. And from there you are going to mark a line outward. So this line is going to serve as your chest line. I hope we get that. We are going to mark out this line outward, and this new line is going to serve as the chest line. So now that we've gotten this line, we are going to extend it upward to touch the shoulder line, but it's not going to touch the shoulder line exactly. We are going to stop 1 inch before the shoulder line so that we can be able to create the shoulder drop for this pattern. So for us to create the shoulder drop, you need to get the your neck width. So for the neck width of this pattern, I'm going to go with 3.5, and then I'm going to mark it on top of that paper. Okay, and from the top there, we are going to just create a slant to connect to the point where we stopped at the armhole line. So you can see that we've created the slant for the armhole, and then I'm going to go over to create the neckline of this pattern. I came down by 6 inch from the top, that's from the shoulder line, and then I used my pattern master, my ruler, to connect a curved neckline for this pattern. So you can decide whatever kind of neckline that you want to be represented on your pattern, it's still okay. So now that I have created the neckline and the shoulder drop as well, So we are going to now work on creating the armhole for the front pattern. So to create the armhole for the front pattern, you place your tape on that straight line of your armhole, and then you're going to get the midpoint. So I had 7.5 and the midpoint is 3.75, and then from that midpoint I came inward by 0.5 inch. Okay, this is because the armhole for the front is usually deeper than the back, and for us to get to the point where the armhole is going to, the curve is going to stop at, you need your bust circumference divided by 4. Then you place that value on your chest line. So that's what I have done here. Then I'm going to use my armhole ruler now to connect these 3 points together so that we can create the armhole curve for the front. I hope you understand that part. So for your armhole to sit nicely on your chest, you need to get your bust circumference. Mine is 36 divided by 4. I had 9 inches, and 9 inches what I placed on my chest line, and from there we connected to touch the shoulder drop to touch the 0.5 inch we marked inward at the armhole line to create the armhole for the front. Alright, so now that the armhole for the front has been formed, next thing is to connect to touch, is to create the side seam. Before we create the side seam, you need to take in the dart. So for the dart, you'll be needing your bust span, that's the distance from one nipple to the other, and I had 3.75. I placed 3.75 on my bust line, on my underbust line, and also on my waistline. Then I'm going to connect these 3 points with a straight line, but our line is not going to meet all the way to the bust line. That's because you wouldn't want the lines to be sharp, and you want your curve to come out really well on your pattern. So you're going to have to come down by 1 inch from your bust line downward, and from there you're going to now mark your bust span from that point down to your chest line. I hope you get that. After you've taken that line, now the next thing to do is to create the darts for your waist and the underbust tightening. So for the waist dart, I'm going to take 1.5 inch, and I will be dividing that by 2. 1.5 inch divided by 2, I will be having 0.75 on both sides. So 0.75 on both sides of the bust span line, that is the dart we are going to be taking on the waist line of this pattern. So you take 0.75 inch on both sides, and then you reconnect it back to touch your apex line. Please ignore the line running from your shoulder to your bust line. That line is not important. We are going to take it off later. So after you have taken this dart, now we are going to take our circumference. Our waist circumference is 30 divided by 4. That's, I just marked it right there on my paper, and because we took 1.5 inch dart, we are going to have to replace it back on the paper, and that's what I have done. Then after replacing, you are going to now connect the side seam. So just take your ruler and connect from your chest line to touch the waistline. So the side seam has been formed now. The next thing we are going to do is to do the underbust tightening. Okay, so for us to do the underbust tightening, you're going to get your underbust circumference divided by 4. I have 7.5 as well. So after marking 7.5, notice that I still have excess at the underbust, and that is like 1.25 inch. So what I'm going to do is to create a dart on the underbust to give it the underbust tightening effect. So to do that, at the outer leg of each side of the underbust, I'm going to take 0.25 inch at the center front of my underbust line, and towards the side front of the outer leg of my underbust line, I'm going to take the remaining 1 inch. So the greater value of the dart of the remaining is going to be towards the center front. Sorry, it will be towards the side front, while the lower value will be towards the center front. So that is exactly what I have done on this pattern. That way you have created the underbust tightening, and now that you've marked it, the next thing you're going to do is to take your curve ruler and connect this new dart leg for the underbust, connect it back to touch the apex line. You do this for the center front line, and you also do the same thing for the side front line. Okay, so you see that the underbust kind of have a different shape to it now, so this will come in effect when you are sewing your pattern. It will give your bust a nice shape. So now that you've drawn out this line, now the next thing is to bring down the dart leg to connect it back to touch your waistline. So you can see how simple it is. You're just going to draw down the line to reconnect back to your waistline. So we have done the bust tightening, the under bust tightening, and we have taken the waist dart. The next thing to do now is to impute our armhole line for the armhole. So for the armhole, what you do is to take your curve ruler, your armhole ruler, and then just randomly place it on your armhole. You place it at the point where you want the dart to run on your armhole. It's that easy. You don't need to really do much at this point. Just take your ruler and place it on your armhole. Ensure that the curve is meeting your underbust curve as well, and then just draw out a curve directly to touch your armhole. You can see this way your armhole seam is already formed. Okay, also this pattern has a side dart, so we are going to be taking the side dart. So the side dart, you place your tape 1 inch below your bust line. If your side dart is 1 inch, if it is 2 inch, you take it 2 inch below your bust line. So my side dart is 1 inch below my bust line. I marked it and then I connected it to touch my bust line. So now I've created the bust, the side dart for this pattern. Like I said initially, please ignore the shoulder line that is running on this pattern. We are going to clean it off later on. Okay, so now that we have gotten the side darts, now the next thing we are going to do is to transfer these darts onto our armhole, so that we'll have a dart running there, and also we can have the contouring going on at that point. So to do that, you just take your scissors and you're going to slash open your armhole line all the way down to touch your apex. You're not going to be cutting, you're not going to be slashing to the end of your pattern to the waist. You're going to be slashing the armhole, and when you get to your bust line, you're going to stop. Now for you to transfer your dart from the side, you're going to now close your side dart. Okay, you can see the way I am doing it like so in this video. So just take your side dart and fold it in. As soon as you fold it in, you discover that the dart automatically transfers to your armhole automatically. You don't need to calculate this, you don't need to divide anything. Just fold in your side dart and the dart will automatically transfer itself to your armhole. So after we folded in this side dart, now I'm going to just use my ruler now to adjust the side as well. Because we folded in the side dart, you discover that your side measurements might kind of shift. So I'm just going to readjust that side measurement so that it stays in place, and it also accommodates the extra shift that just happened at the side of this pattern. So that side is done. You can take your tape now and you can tape down the side dart so it doesn't move around. After you've done that, at this point now you can go ahead and cut out your pattern. All right, so just pay attention. A beginner, look at the way that I'm cutting this pattern. You're going to be cutting out the darts at the waistline. You're going to be cutting out the darts at the underbust line. You're going to be cutting out all the parts that we have on this pattern that is not needed. You're going to be cutting that out. Please remember that I did not add sewing allowance to this, so don't think that I'm cutting out the sewing allowance. So I've cut out all of the darts, and this is what it looks like. This is the center front and the side front. So now I'm going to work on the armhole side so that we can prevent gaping at that point. So to do that, I'm going to take out 1 inch at that armhole side, so that when you join these two pieces, that's the center front and the side front together, you don't have some sort of gaping happening towards that armhole. And to be able to eliminate that, we took out 1 inch at the armhole. Then I took my ruler and I reconnected the curve back into the pattern. Okay, see what I just did now? This is so that we can take away gaping at that side. After you've done this, you can now go ahead and cut it out. It's as simple as that. That way, when you join the two pieces together, you're not going to have any form of gaping at the armhole. So you see, after you've taken out that, you will notice that when you align your pattern, it might not align. The side might be shorter than the center front. So what we'll do now, we'll take an extra sheet of paper, place the side of our pattern on top of the sheet of paper, secure it with our sellotape as usual. Okay, just place it on your sheet of paper, secure it. So what you will do, for us to be able to make sure that the side is not shorter than the center front, we are going to be extending it by 1 inch. So we are going to be extending the tip of the armhole by 1 inch. So you can see what I'm doing here with my tape. I've extended the tip by 1 inch, and after extending, I went ahead to reconnect it to join the armhole again. Okay, so after extending, I went ahead to reconnect it to join the armhole, and then I went out to cut out the shape that I've just reconnected. So this way you are not going to be worried about whether the side of the center or is not going to align. At this point, it's going to align properly and they will come out beautifully well. So after you've extended that, you see I'm going to match them again. You can see that all the tips, they are matching each other now. They are all aligning properly. All right, so this is what the front would look like when you are done. So we are going to be doing this same thing for the back. Onto the back now. The back is basically the same thing with the front. We don't need to start measuring and analyzing the back. It's the same thing with the front. The only difference between the back and the front is that the back is 1 inch shorter than the front, because of the side that we close at the front will enable the side of the back and the side of the front to align when you are stitching them together. So the back is 15.5 inch in length, while the front is 16.5 inch in length. And for them to come together, the side that was closed for the front, so when you join the front and the back together, it will sit well. Okay, so this is it for the back. I didn't really do much. I just went ahead to alter the neckline to give me the neck shape that I wanted. So at this point, if you want your back to have a princess seam, you can just do what I'm doing at this point. But if you don't, you can just leave it like that. It doesn't really matter. You can go with the basic back pattern. So because I wanted the back panel to also have a princess seam on it without a dart, just a princess seam, a line that looks like a princess seam, I used my pattern master to just go ahead and mark out a line from my from the waist that to touch the armhole. Okay, so at this point I noticed that the lines were kind of too deep for me and I didn't want it to be that deep, so I kind of erased it, and then I went back in to use my free hand to mark out the curve that I want, the exact way I want the curve to be. After marking it out, this is it, guys. The pattern for the back is ready. I am now cutting out the darts. I'm cutting out the darts for the back. And also please remember that I took out 1/2 inch for the back, for the center back where the zip is going to sit in, so that it doesn't create some form of bulginess at the back of this pattern. So that I also did. I altered that part as well. So after cutting out, this is what it looks like. You're going to be cutting out 2 pieces on each of these panels, so you can see that I'm indicating how many pieces you need for your pattern when you transfer this onto your fabric. And please note that this pattern does not have a sewing allowance to it. So when you cut out this pattern like this and you're transferring it to your fabric, ensure that you add your sewing allowances to it. So basically, guys, that is it for you. This is the front and the back. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. See you guys in my next one. Stay blessed. Bye.